Over the past year, the Houston Police Department was scrutinized for several controversial officer-involved shootings.
That, along with the death of George Floyd, sparked Houston Mayor Sylvester Turner to form a task force which made a series of recommendations for the department.
But that was over 100 days ago. So what's changed? Channel 2's Brandon Walker is joining us live from Alief with the latest segment in our series, Stronger Houston. Brandon?
Yeah, 113 days to be exact, Christine, hence the questions about what's going on. So today we spoke to Mayor Sylvester Turner, and he assured us that there are changes in store, including adding paid staff and Office of Inspector General even to the embattled Independent Police Oversight Board. That Inspector General, he says, will also be able to take complaints from the public. That's a big change. But as for a timeline, the mayor says that we'll begin to see these in coming months. And so that's where critics pounce, because they say by now, some 113 days later, there should be solid policy changes already in effect. Houston Police Chief Art Acevedo Tuesday welcomed new recruits. The cadets join a department that finds itself wedged between a pledge to serve and protect and public cries for policing reform.
It's a challenging task, but not an impossible task.
Larry Payne chaired Mayor Sylvester Turner's task force on policing reform, which on September 30th last year published its recommendations, 104 total.
We're approaching things on a multiple levels.
Mayor Turner today on what he says already has been implemented, including cite and release and safe harbor courts.
As you know, I signed the executive order that made it an obligation for, let's say, police officers who see other police officers doing something wrong. They are required to intervene. De-escalation.
My thought process is that we've stagnated.
Ashton P. Woods of Black Lives Matter Houston says many of the recommendations in the report, which include those first raised years ago, could have been implemented by now.
Many of the recommendations from this advisory council, much like the others, looks like it's collecting dust on the shelf.
Last spring, the Houston Police Department drew ire for a series of controversial officer-involved shootings, including the shooting death of Nicholas Chavez, which resulted in the firings of 4 officers. We want justice! Those, coupled with the killing of Houston native George Floyd by Minneapolis police, brought thousands to the streets. While the task force's report includes a bevy of suggestions, much of the public scrutiny centered on the Independent Police Oversight Board, a panel of volunteers, civilians appointed by the mayor. The task force recommended an overhaul, beginning with additional funding, paid staff, and workspace outside of the Houston Police Department. Critics long have called the panel a toothless tiger for what they say it doesn't have: subpoena power, independent of information they receive from HPD investigations.
I believe it's a very fair process that they have in place.
However, Doug Griffith of the Houston Police Officers Union says overall the disciplinary process is fair and effective. Griffith also contains giving the panel power to subpoena an officer in question wouldn't change much.
I personally do not, because at the end of the day, an officer doesn't have to go in there and speak to them.
Griffith says the police union is fine with most of the recommendations in the task force's report.
Oh, I think there's plenty that could be implemented, especially in the way of training. Our officers would love to have more training. They beg for more training. The problem is it all comes back to money.
Police officers' unions in particular are very powerful.
Which has slowed the process, says Ashton Woods, who adds Mayor Turner is powerful too and could propose changes to disciplinary guidelines during the union's collective bargaining process.
He gave an affirmative to how he would handle that. We've seen no action. We've seen nothing, no meetings, no invitations, nothing.
Now, along with the collective bargaining process, there's also the state legislature where that change could be pushed. There is the George Floyd bill on the floor. Another point about the union contract. So the current contract actually was supposed to expire on December 31st, but because of the pandemic and other things, they're in what's called an evergreen period, and that can last until the end of the year. But even throughout that process, they can begin talks on a new contract. If they don't by year's end, the current contract stands, and that means that there will be no changes, including no raises other than those that may have been built in the contract for the police force. So that's why you've got a lot of advocates tonight saying it's time to move as time is ticking. Live in Alief tonight, I'm Brandon Walker, KPRC Channel 2 News.